Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Nieves Huffman. Welcome back to my channel. It is so great to be in this month of both love with Valentine's Day, but also celebrating Black History Month. And so in my last video, we talked about that African culture influence in the Puerto Rican race and really celebrating that in our home. So I hope you really enjoyed that. I'll make sure that we tag it up here so that way you can reference it in case you haven't seen it yet. But today we're going to talk about, in the theme of love and Valentine's Day and all that good stuff, but also this passion that I have around supporting first generation anything and anyone, whether it's college or entrepreneurship. The unique challenges and opportunities of being married to an entrepreneur. Now, that's something that growing up I saw. I witnessed my father being an entrepreneur and watching my mom and how she negotiated that. And so I think that helped, to a certain degree. It was still challenging in the beginning of our marriage. And so a lot of interest on behalf of my Instagram followers. If you don't follow me on Instagram, make sure you do. But we definitely had some challenges in the beginning of our relationship. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure,
Keep
sure.
it real?
Yeah. No, entrepreneurship is hard. I mean, a lot of what you're trying to solve for, it's like entrepreneurship, whatever your business is like a really long algebraic equation. And you're trying to solve for variables, right?
Yeah.
And the variables, the more you can eliminate them, then the more certainty you create. So you're trying to take uncertainty and turn it into certainty. And the certainty happens when you get your business stable, cash flowing. And so in that process of taking uncertainty, it's stressful, right?
Yeah.
And so early on when we were married, my whole life was uncertainty, right? From the partners I had, from the deals that I was chasing.
Yeah.
It was nothing but a big Olympics-sized swimming pool of uncertainty.
Right.
And so with that in mind, that's a tax because you are a partner in that uncertainty. And so you're watching as I have the stresses and the uncertain moments and sometimes certain moments and figuring it all out. So yeah, it was a stress on our marriage. And let's keep it real too. Like the money doesn't line up when you're starting out. You're taking tremendous risk.
That's right.
And you're hoping. That's why you're trying to solve for those variables where you can say, hey, can I make a consistent income every month, right? That's just where you want to get. Then when you get income, it's like, okay, can I make a little more than what I need to just pay bills? And
I think it's so important to kind of, when you're dating someone, you make sure that they're ready for that uncertainty in terms of, and also the ego, right? Because if you were machista, you would have issue that the first few years of our marriage, I was the one that was the primary breadwinner because you were building up your business.
I was reinvesting,
But down the line in our marriage when I started having kids, and I'll never forget when I worked for that one organization where there was no maternity or paternity leave, and I had to take 4 months off because my son had a condition, and I didn't feel right about leaving him with a nanny to deal with that medical condition. And so I took 4 months of unpaid leave, and if it weren't for us making those sacrifices for the business in the beginning of the marriage where you weren't bringing in income, but I was bringing in the income. Now I was at a point where I wasn't bringing any income, and your business was able to cover both of our incomes at that point. So being married to an entrepreneur, you have to, I think it's so important what you just said, you have to expect the unexpected. You have to be okay with ambiguity and the uncertainty and taking risk, like just having, I go like this because it's such a gut feeling to be able to weather the risk of it all. And so, and that's something that people ask me, it's like, how do you prepare yourself for managing risk? And I mean,
close your eyes.
Close your eyes, right. But I think also there are just people that are not meant for entrepreneurship.
Yep.
If you want to clock in at 9, clock out at 5, collect a pension when you retire, that is the majority of Americans, that's the American dream to a certain extent, that you would work hard all your life, collect a pension when you need it in your old age, or a 401k, what that might look like. But you, from the beginning, always had a vision and a plan of why you wanted to go into entrepreneurship, and I'd love for you to talk about that as far as the legacy piece.
Yeah, for me, and I think Jay-Z has a song called Legacy, and for me it was always that, even before we had children. It was about, what's the legacy? How do I break? If I go back 2 generations, 2.5 or 3 generations, my family, they were slaves, which meant they were property, right? They were like our house. They could be mortgaged, they could be sold. And so I knew the only way that I was going to create the legacy that I hoped for our kids was to have a mindset of ownership. I need to own something, and then ideally own a lot more, right?
Yeah.
And then have control,
Right.
and be able to sit at the table. Because early on in my career, when I worked in the nonprofit and education sector, I saw how the role and the influence that people with money had.
Oh, yeah.
Even when they were wrong, they were often right
Oh, yeah.
because they had money.
Oh, yeah.
And I observed and said, wow, you can be wrong and right just because you have money.
And people automatically assume because you have money, you're smart.
Exactly.
And everything that
That's
comes
right.
out of him, oh, you're brilliant, you're
That's
smart.
right.
And they
That's
don't
right.
get checked.
That's
you
right.
know?
That's totally right.
Yeah.
And I saw that up close at a young age, and I thought to myself, not that I want to do that, be wrong, but yet be right, but I wanted to have the option to create a legacy, because I also saw that these individuals were able to take vacations. They had lives of opportunity, not of, denying themselves things. And so that became a piece that I said, hey, whether our kids want to be teachers, whether they want to be business people, they want to be social workers, you name it, librarians, whatever it may be, I wanted them to have the freedom of choice so that they could say, I want to do it, but I'm doing it because I want to.
Not because I have to.
Not because I have to.
Yeah,
exactly.
that's right.
So it was always about, let me learn the game. And I had the difficulty because I didn't come from a business background. I didn't have uncles or dad or anyone that was really in business in a way. So I tell people it was like being Tiger Woods. Well, I shouldn't say Tiger, I wasn't really that. It was being a golfer and then deciding I want to play football, right? And I want to play a position that gets hit every play, like running back, because it's even tougher. And for me, I said, hey, if I can create possibilities, take knocks, get some premature gray as a result, but maybe make an easier way, not too easy, right? But slightly easier way for our kids and then our kids' kids, that's really what it's about, right?
And you should know something about my husband is that he is all about teaching these concepts of entrepreneurship and what it means to our kids. And I'll never forget when the pandemic first hit and we were at the stay-at-home shelter, what do we have the kids do? Watch Shark Tank over and over again, all these different, and he created like this little rubric on a value, like if you were a judge on Shark Tank, how would you evaluate these businesses? And then on top of that, we ended up having the kids, we said, okay kids, you are a contestant, we're gonna pretend that you're a contestant on Shark Tank, you have to build a business or an idea that's gonna help during this pandemic situation. And we had their godparents tuned in on Zoom, they were the panel of judges. And so, but even simple things like when we play Monopoly, I mean, Craig is always like, well, this is why you got to, and so it's every opportunity that we've tried to like teach, especially you. I'm an entrepreneur right now, but you from the jump of our marriage have always eaten what you killed, and so it's something that I definitely appreciate in our parenting style. And I really think, I hope that that'll just set up our kids for success in terms of knowing things that otherwise they would not know.
I mean, if nothing else, they got exposed. I never got exposed, so I never saw it. So for me, I was trying to create something that I had seen conceptually, far away, and people I didn't know, but I had never seen up close. And I tell folks, when you see it up close, it's always much better. I mean, if you think about it, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant saw Michael Jordan. I mean, so people say Kobe Bryant's great, but would he have been as great if he didn't have Michael Jordan to look at and to emulate, right?
That's right.
And so much of life is, who are your role models? Whether it's your parents, whether it's someone outside the family. And I think larger community, right? The Latino and the African American community, we don't have as much of that, right? And so folks that live in certain communities don't see people that defy what has now become the stereotype of the narrative. And I think, when you see it, it's easier to want to be it,
That's right. Now, one thing that's happened, this has been, the last 12 months have been the year of the pandemic, right? And what we've seen is this upshot of businesses that have started and entrepreneurs that have come out of it. Lots of Etsy shops that are started and that sort of thing. And
unfortunately, ones that have failed, restaurants.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's
40-50% of restaurants may go out of business.
That's right. And so I think that I'm getting a lot of questions on Instagram and on YouTube around entrepreneurship. What does it take tactically to set up a relationship that will support you in your professional goals and entrepreneurship. So I'd love to talk now, just tactically, like what were the things that we did early on? This is what worked for us, okay? And some of these things are not the cultural norm, okay? So I'm just gonna say it. So I grew up watching the village raising the children, right? So my aunts, my uncles, tios, tias, abuelitos, abuelitas, they all helped in taking care of us, but it couldn't have been more obvious. I'm the youngest of 3, and I came 12 years after my sister. So everybody was living in Chicago, and as soon as I got married to Craig, everybody was like, bye. And they all left me and went to Florida. So you know this because
the weather helps.
I know, and I want to move to Florida too. Hint, hint. But it was really hard because then I said, oh shoot, now that when we have kids and stuff, I want to be able to have that village, but they're all the way in Florida and we're in Chicago. So we had to make some really tough decisions around childcare. Well, first of all, we decided that we weren't going to have kids immediately. Sophia was born after 4 years, and it was great because we traveled a lot. I was the CEO of a national organization, and we got to travel to Cabo, paid by my company at the time.